Hi, welcome to iFlip for Math, Mathcast, Lesson 7-6, Part 2, Dividing Decimals by a Whole Number. Tonight, we are using doubles division. I'm Mrs. Gooding, and our quote tonight again is by Thomas Edison, but this is a different quote. I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that will not work. So kind of like Einstein said that same thing, that it took him a long time to work out those problems, and he didn't find the solution for a long time. Our learning goal again is to use doubles division to divide a decimal by a whole number. So our learning goals sound pretty similar to last night's. So here we go, 28 and 40 hundredths divided by 40. This may be easier for you tonight, or it may be harder for you. An interesting fact about Thomas Edison is that he was very hard of hearing, and it was something that he had to overcome. It seems like people who have great success in life often have something that's hard for them that they have to overcome. So if you have something hard going on in your life, overcome it, and it may bring you great success, just the practice of doing that. Let's go ahead and work that problem now. So now, in the same way, our decimal does go straight up because we only have a decimal in the dividend. Now, we're going to work this like our doubles problem. So what number is closest to 2 without going over? And there isn't one. And what number is closest to 28 without going over? There isn't one. And we know that we're going to end up turning that into a 0 because it comes right before the decimal. But now we're looking at 284, just like we did last night. The closest number to that, though, in our list of doubles is 160. So I'm going to write 160 right beneath 284 because that's what we were looking at. Now, I know I have an empty place value position that I'm going to have to annex 1 0. And so I'm going to take the number to the left of 160 and write it over here, 4. And since I annexed a 0 here, I'll annex a 0 here, 40. And now I'm ready to do the next step, which is to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 4 minus 0 is 4. 8 minus 6 is 2. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So now I'm looking at the number 12, first of all, and there is no number here, then a double that will go into it. So I look at the closest number to 124, and I'm kind of covering up that 0 at the end with my hand if I'm working this on a piece of paper. The closest number to 124 in this column is 80. So I'm putting my 80 beneath the 124. Again, I have an empty place value position that I annex a 0, and I go to the number to the left of 80, and it's a 2. I annexed 1 0 here, so I know I'm going to annex a 0 here. So I have 20. So now let's see. We're going to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 4 minus 0 is 4. And 12 minus 8 is 4. So now I have the number 440. So the closest number without going over is 320. So I'll write that right below it. I'm not annexing any zeros. That 0 is a part of that number. And so I'll take that 8 and write it right here. Remember, some of you really need to connect those so that you know you've written every quotient number over here in the quotient column. And I'm ready to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 4 minus 2 is 2. And 4 minus 3 is 1. So now I'm looking for the closest number to 120 without going over. And it's 80. So I'll write that below there. And the number next to 80 is a 2. I didn't annex a 0 there, so 0 minus 0 is 0. 12 minus 8 is 4. And the closest number to 40 without going over is exactly 40. So I'll write 40 below here. And take that 1 and write it right here. And subtract. 40 minus 40 is 0. That's a crazy line. And I'm ready to add up my quotient columns. So 8 plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. Carry my 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So I have 2 digits down here in my quotient column and 2 empty place value positions here. So I'm going to write that there. And then remember, because I have a decimal here and we want to be mathematically, grammatically correct, so we're going to put a 0 here, so that there's a digit before and after that decimal. So our answer is 71 hundredths, just like it was last night. You can see this problem is a little bit more complex and takes a little longer, but it does still get you the same answers. So here's our first practice problem. 22 1/10 divided by 17. Again, the same problem. I want you to work it tonight using doubles division, no matter which way you're more comfortable with. Go ahead and work that using doubles division and push play when you're ready. Don't forget to check it using decimal multiplication. Did you write 1 3/10? Let's see. Okay, so I've already set it up for you using the doubling process, and my decimal is going to go straight up to the roof. Now I'm going to go through the process. No, there is no number in my doubling column that will go into 2, so I'll put an X here. And the closest number to 22 without going over is 17, so I'll write 17 underneath that and go over here and put a 1 right here. Now I have to remember annex a 0 for that empty place value position now, so I'm going to annex a 0 here as well. And now we will subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. 2 minus 7, can't do it, so I'm going to regroup. Now I have 12 minus 7, which is 5. And if we think back to last night, let's see, we know that 17 goes into 51 3 times, so that's kind of what we're looking for, but let's see what happens here. The closest number to 51 without going over is 34. And we didn't have to annex any zeros, so we're going to take that number to the left of it and just write it right here. Let's connect our quotient numbers, our partial quotients actually, and subtract. 1 minus 4, you can't do. 11 minus 4 is 7, and 4 minus 3 is 1. So now we'll have the closest number to 17 without going over is 17. They're the same. So I'll take the 1 that's next to that and write it right here. 17 minus 17 is 0, so we have no remainders. But we know that we've got 2 place value positions on the roof of our house that have to be filled. So we're going to have 2 digits in our quotient. So let's add up our quotient column. 2 plus 1 is 3. And 1 plus nothing is 1. Now, this looks like 13, but when we position this in the 2 empty spaces, it becomes 1 3/10 because we had already put our decimal there. So that one was a little bit easier actually. Don't forget to check it using decimal multiplication. So I did change our word problem for tonight. So you have a new one. If it will cost Mr. Edison $406.20 to build 30 phonographs, how much will it cost to build 1 phonograph? So same idea, but different numbers. Go ahead and work that out using doubles division, please. Check your answer with decimal multiplication and push play when you are ready. Did you write $13.54? Let's see how we did that. So I do love how we can have problems that look like they're some big, scary division problems, but we can make it really easy using doubles division. Just be careful, check your doubling right now. Sometimes we have a tendency with 30 to go 30, 60, 90. Check to make sure that you went 30, 60, 120, 240. And I put our dollar sign in there because it is money, and I want us to remember that. We're dividing that up, and our final answer, quotient, will also be money. So we're looking first at the closest number to 4 without going over. We don't have a number there, so I'll put an X there. Closest number to 40 without going over. Ooh, I forgot to put my decimal there. I'm going to owe you a push-up. Okay, our decimal goes straight up to the roof because there's no decimals in our divisor. Now we can get back to the problem after I go work out my arms, I guess. So the closest number to 40 without going over is 30. So I'm going to write 30 right under that 40 because that's what we're focusing on. I now have 3 empty place value positions that I need to annex zeros for. 1, 2, 3. Don't think that you annexed that 0. You didn't. It was part of your doubling. So when I come over here, I'm going to add the 1 next to it. And then I'm going to write those 3 annex zeros next to it. 1, 2, 3. Now look, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 empty place value positions in our quotient. So it makes sense that we would have 4 digits right here because it will fill in very neatly. Now I can subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. 6 minus 0 is 6. 0 minus 0 is 0. This is the hardest subtraction problem ever. 4 minus 3 is 1. So I now have 10,620, and I don't want to work that problem. So I'm going to look for the closest number to 10, and there isn't one. The closest number to 106, and that would be 60. So I'll write the 60 right under the 106. I'm going to have to annex 2 zeros. I'm just going to underline this so I don't get that confused with my annexed zeros. Kind of like we do when we're talking about royalty in our mental math. So I'm going to come over here to the left and write a 2. And since I only have 2 zeros after that, I'm going to actually write my 2 annex zeros first so that my columns will be all lined up place value position wise. And I'm ready to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. 6 minus 0 is 6. And 0 minus 6, you can't do it. So I'm just going to look at that number together. 10 minus 6 is 4. So I'm looking for the closest number to 46 without going over, because there isn't a number that will go into 4. And that would be 30. So I'll write that right under there. I'm still going to have to annex 2 zeros. That was in my original number. So I'm going to write my 2 annexed zeros first and add my 1 in front of them. Now I'll subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. 6 minus 0 is 6. My numbers keep getting smaller and smaller. 4 minus 3 is 1. So now I'm looking for the number closest to 162. And that would be 120. I'm still going to have to annex 1 0. So I come over here and there's a 4 to the left of 120. So I'm going to annex my 0 and then write my 4 in. Subtract. See how careful I am to line up my numbers and columns? That keeps my work really organized. Helps me to not make mistakes. I don't like to have to do work over. I don't mind doing it over, but I'd rather get it right the first time. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. So I'm looking for the closest thing to 42 without going over, and that would be 30. And I'm going to have to annex 1 0. So I'll take that 1 to the left of the 30, and there's my 1 annexed 0. I'm ready to subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2, and 4 minus 3 is 1. Okay, good, because the closest number to 120 without going over is 120, and that is exactly what we have space for. So I'll take that 4 and write it in the ones column because I didn't annex any zeros. 120 minus 120 is 0. I don't need to work that through digit by digit, but I do need to add up the numbers in my quotient column. So I've got them all lined up. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0, 0, blah, blah, blah. Plus 4 is 4. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 4 plus 1 is 5. And 2 plus 1 is 3. And 1 plus nothing is 1. So it's not that I have 1,354, it's that I have 4 digits in my quotient. So I'm going to come up here and write them here. 1, 3, 5, 4. So my answer is $13.54 to build each phonogram. So that was a fun one. Crazy long, but fun. It's time to challenge yourself. This problem is different too. Mr. Edison needs 120 72/100 inches of wire filament to make 60 light bulbs. How much wire will it take to make each light bulb? So have some fun working this problem. Show your work in your journal. You're using doubles division. Remember that. My hand almost hurts from working that last problem. We worked so hard on it. So I know Mr. Edison would be proud of us for working so incredibly hard and making opportunities for ourselves. Finishing up. I think as long as you remember to move your decimals straight up to the roof when there isn't a decimal in the divisor, this is really just working division problems. Tomorrow night's going to be a little different because we'll be annexing zeros for sure. But just keep working hard and we'll get it. Write down if you're a 1, a 2, or a 3 level in your learning, and write down any questions you still have. Yowza, you finished lesson 7-6 part 2, dividing a decimal by a whole number using doubles division. I will see you tomorrow.